Hello and welcome to Mirror Realm. My name's Nick, known as Wyvern on the Discord servers. This is the fourth episode in our limited play series. We're looking to release 2 episodes in this series each week until we complete it. And we're thinking that's going to end up being around 20 episodes or so in total. So if this is something you're interested in and you want to be notified when we release new episodes, be sure to subscribe to the channel. With that said, let's get into it. In this episode, we're going to be going over the Ordinary Air spellbook cards in the Arthurian Legends set, as well as the artifacts, or rather, Ordinary Artifact, which is just a rock. I'll cover that off after the air cards as well. So let's jump in to the discussion now. Arc Lightning. I know this is not an auto-include, I find, if you draft it for reasons. I think
anytime you're 2-element, it is. But yeah, it's like not it's a bit awkward to include in a 3 elements as your splash for sure. Or even just 3 elements.
And as we've hinted upon, like, air is a very good splash color as well. So that is a thing. Where you splashing air, you only want to play 3 air sites, ideally 2, depending on your how many castle servants you have, or other stuff like sites that are multi-threshold type of thing.
It's funny looking at the air ordinaries now and saying it's a good splash color because like it's basically Magic Missiles is the only ordinary you'd want to splash, but it typically comes from the exceptionals, elites, and uniques that you want to splash. So
yeah.
And just looking at this now, air has got to be the weakest, right? Of the elements. Certainly for ordinaries.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, it is good because it kills some of these 4-powered things, but it still costs 4, so you're not really...
Oh, it's certainly playable. And it's like, it's pretty easy to get the Death Door kill with it as well, just by stepping up a couple of times. And it's certainly playable. The floor is a bit awkward.
It really feels pretty bad when you're spending 4 mana and move to kill something that's like 2 or 3 power as well.
Yep. That's sort of where
there's plenty of the really problematic Sirs that can take more than 4 damage before they die, so it doesn't kill those, although it does kill some of them. But yeah, I don't know, it's solid. It is an answer. It's one of those cards where it's like, it really depends if you have ways, like if you're lacking ways to kill them on Death's Door, you're kind of forced to play it. If you're lacking with ways to deal with anything generally, like minions, like you have to play it. If you have plenty of other cards that are doing stuff like that, it's less needed. It's a weird one where depending on the rest of the composition of your deck, it can be quite important to play it on curve if you don't have good answers to all of this 4-powered 4-drop stuff. But if that's not the case, then normally by the time at whatever point in the game if it's later, the thresholds aren't an issue at all. It's quite variable depending on the deck, right? This one in particular.
Yeah,
this is the thing,
which definitely makes it hard to rank.
I mean, I feel like ultimately the floor's pretty high because at the end of the day, you're always going to at least kill something with it at some point in the game. Worst case scenario. Yeah. So it's not going to do nothing. The floor is pretty I don't know high, but the floor is pretty reasonable, right? It's average game.
Like, the floor is reasonable because like it's still good late, like, and realistically it's better late because you're more willing to move the later the game gets. So even then, so like that part of it's actually worse early, realistically. So
yeah, I think it's very solid. The main reason that it doesn't ultimately get included as such is just when it's a 3-element deck and the air is like the thresh. You just if
not
you're not,
much.
like you're saying, it's good, it's better
Or
late, but
near
not
much.
having the option to cast it early when a brown bear's just smacking your face in is not good. Like, you want the option, right? And if that isn't a reasonable possibility for your deck, because you're only playing 3 air thresholds, then... But where we're talking about, probably you're assuming that in that whatever this conceptual thing is in the 25th worst game out of 100, you're probably assuming they're going to have the thresholds to be able to cast it reasonably in that scenario, I imagine. So I think we can rate it on that basis.
Yep.
It's weird. Who would have thought this would be? This feels like the most awkward card so far out of all of them. I think the bad game is, it's got to be at least 6, surely.
Yeah, I think the bad game and the good game are pretty close together for this card.
Is
Like,
it
I don't
6,
think
is it
there's-
6, 6, 7?
Maybe, because I think, like, if you can cast it, it's about as good as it's going to be each time, right? Like,
Well, yeah, I mean, in the good game,
like some
where
games
we're
you have to
saying...
kill a 3 power where it's not great. So
Well, in
it
the
is
good game, you're
slightly-
presumably it's involved in killing something that matters. That's the thing, right? That
Yeah.
that otherwise was problematic, or it gives you the death door kill. Because there are a lot of cards in this set that are problematic. Like a lot of the Sirs are problematic if you can't deal with them.
Yep. Yeah, so probably, yeah, I think
This is a pretty
6,
solid answer to a lot of stuff. So I think 6, 6, 7 is. Do you have
Yeah.
is that fair?
Yeah, I think it's fair.
It's really solid. I mean, nearly all the time, as long as your deck is capable of casting the thing reliably, it's pretty much always going to be included. And the only reason why it isn't is because you've got multiples, right? And there's only so many you want. You probably don't want more than 2. So,
Yeah.
but I think the only time I've ever had this card and not included in my deck is just because it's problematic to cast, basically. Because it's a 3 or 4 element deck, and the air is just super light splash, and you want everything to be single thresholds, basically. So,
Yeah.
Band of Thieves.
Probably similar to Arc Lightning, right? In that, like, if you can cast it with the thresholds, you're probably always including it. I suppose it's fair to compare it to the Swindler Troop and Ruffians.
Yeah. The
Probably-
floor is pretty... I think the floor is high just because it's got stealth, so they can't ever pick it off, right? Stealth itself.
Yeah.
So its bad game is better. Obviously,
It can't run a game like Ruffians does. And it can't break a game by giving stealth to something that never normally has stealth. So it's definitely... Its top end is worse than both of those cards.
Yeah.
I think the fact that air is generally harder to play as like a core color, so you generally don't have easy access to double air on like your early turns. Maybe that brings it down a little bit for the average as well, but maybe not. Maybe we shouldn't be. Maybe we should just be
that's a tough one
considering
to...
on power. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a tough... I think there's certainly an argument to be had there, but I think we just don't have it.
It's not really something you ever splash, is the problem.
No, exactly. But I think we can... I think we just have to... that's an interesting one.
Whereas water and fire are both like very strong colors, so it's like, ugh. Awkward.
Yeah. Alright, so what are we saying? So it's... Ruffians was
Roughly
5.
5, 7, 9. And Troop is 6, 7, 8.
Yeah.
Maybe it's 6, 6, 7.
It's weird.
'Cause
It definitely feels like its bad game is better. Its bad game is better for sure. As long as you can cast it, like we're saying, look, its bad game is pretty good. Because
but we're also saying the only reason the bad game for Swindler Troop is if you can't cast it on 3. That's its only bad time of the game. And the same goes for Band of Thieves. Because they're both good for later, like when the game's late, right? They don't really fall off at all.
Yeah, but the bad game is Swindle Troop is better just because it has stealth, and Swindle Troop gives nothing stealth, right?
Yeah, but if you're just jamming them both on 3, the stealth is way less relevant that early.
Yeah, but not irrelevant.
Either getting in for 3 or it's.
Well, they can't block. They can't block what you attack.
Yeah, so I was about to say it's potentially acting like a harassing ruffian.
Yeah,
in its
yeah.
Or
I think it's
hitting for 3.
It's certainly got a better bad. It's certainly better on the bad game. It's just, is it better enough to go up a point? That's the question.
Yeah,
like it's
probably not. Because at that early stage of the game, I don't think the stealth is like as relevant on just a 3/3.
Is it 6/6/7?
I think so. Because I don't think its bad game is about as good as its average game.
Castle Servants. I think this is, like we're saying, this is the premium one potentially.
Yeah, I think
because
this is the best
of all the splash
one.
stuff. But I don't know. What are we saying?
I also don't think
5, 6. I don't know.
I also don't think it changes at all.
Hider sprites.
I think this is almost unplayable.
I mean,
like it's obviously worse than all the servants.
Yeah, well, how does it compare to Saracen Scout?
Worse than the Fishwife.
Probably, but is it worse than the Saracen Scout? That's the question. Feels very similar.
Yeah, it's pretty similar. Like, it's pretty good if you have a lookout.
Yeah, which is air and ordinary.
Yeah. But it's also putting it into that synergizing with other things, trying to raise its value. And I can't remember if we said yes or no to that. Because I know
it's on the prospect of being able to pull it off. So, but I think the prospect in this particular case is not unreasonable because they're both air, right? So it's not dependent. It's less dependent on cards not being ordinary involved and being different elements where you don't know you're going to end up in those elements.
Every synergy we've talked about is just all ordinaries.
But cross
because it was Bog and Hamlet, which is
That's
two different elements, and then it was Pond and Brown Bears, which is two different elements.
Yeah. Whereas this is the same, so it's a bit less dependent, but probably still a bit too. I don't know. I'm alright with 4/4/4.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be that synergy is going to push it up at all. Is it? What did we say? It was. Did we put Raiders as 4/4/4?
Which one? Sorry,
Scout. Scout. Yeah, Scout was 4/4/4.
Yeah,
okay.
And then we put
4/4/4. I'm happy with that.
What was the other one?
Fishwife.
Finwife. We also put that as 4/4/4 in the end. We were arguing.
I think Fishwife, after we've been talking about it, is actually better than Harder Sprites. Unless you have lookouts. But that's one of those cards that probably just gets pushed up when we actually have it and we're talking about it.
Sure. Keening Banshee, this is another one that just, I don't know, it's not that good, but...
It's not that good, but the fact that almost all of the good 2-drops are ordinary, right, in all the families, it's basically like the Band of Thieves, right? If you can cast it, it's potentially it's most likely going to make your deck just because you need dudes. But it's not great. It's that like 23rd, 24th card sort of thing. But also, if you have no mortals, there's a pretty good chance it's not going to make your deck. But just about every deck you draft is going to have mortals, especially if you can have double air, because like you got a lot of mortals in air.
Yeah.
So, not good, not the worst.
Is it 4/4/4?
I think it's. Yeah, I was going to say, its bad games are about as good as its average and good. I mean, so actually, no, it's probably the good games are better than a 4, right? Because there's the games where you get them down for free on turn 2 or turn 3.
Yeah, or just late game, it's better, right? 3 power is better than 2 power when mana doesn't matter. Yeah. So clearly it's at least 5.
Probably is not better.
Is it
4-4-5, I think is fine.
Magic
Missiles is one of the biggest reasons to splash air. It's just good at all points of the game.
Yeah.
They generally go around pretty late because air is a bit weak and a bit underdrafted. It sorts out your early game pretty well. It's good late game. It can be a death door thing. There's a lot of flexibility with it.
It's interesting because the premium value that we place and our whole draft group place on Magic Missiles is also part of what gives the Shelly Coat more premium value, right? As well.
Probably a thing.
But
yeah, the fact that it clears up all of the 2-drops except for Shelly Coat and still gets in a little bit of chip, so like you're trading 1 for 1 and you're hitting your curve, but you're getting a little bit more value out of it is good. And yeah, it's just pretty so rare that it's not good at some point of the game. And like you can still you're in those situations where like with a Jewel or a Joust where you have to potentially 2 for 1 yourself. With it by like throwing a small minion in and magic missiling, this is still cheaper than those other potentially bad options.
Yeah. I mean, it kills on Death's Door. And so the thing, also just, I mean, there definitely are times where, I mean, typically speaking, I think, I don't know what the average, I'm guessing I would have averaged around 20 in AAA draft. The average amount of minions in my decks would have to be around 20, I reckon. And I don't think it would be too dissimilar for you, would it?
Yeah, probably.
It's a lot, right? It's a lot more than when it's triple beta. It's noticeably more.
Yeah.
And that just gives, there's just more opportunities for this to just do stuff as well, right? Like just in combination with some attacks and blocks and like, you know, throw something at a brown bears and then finish it off with this and then kill the robin that's behind it, or just there's just more stuff going on with minions basically in triple.
There's also the potential of like killing something that's carrying a lance and then stepping in and just picking it up and things like that. So it's very good. Is it the bad game has got to be at least 7, right? Yeah, and I think it's good game. I think it might just be straight across the board, right? I don't think its good game is generally much worse than its bad game.
Yeah. Yeah, despite everything we're saying, there's all these fringe scenarios where it can.
But yeah, it's just a consistent card, right? Because it's very consistent. Its floor's high, but its ceiling's not that much higher, right, than its floor. But its floor is good.
Yeah, it's a very us card. Like we care in many ways we care way more about the bad game number than the good game number.
Yes.
Whereas a lot of people just focus on this good game number, basically, right? Like they focus on when they win, why they won, so to speak, or what felt like made them win or whatever, as opposed to focusing on when they lose, why they lost, basically. Pin it down to something like bad luck, but that probably is because you were playing a whole bunch of cards that had low bad game values, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
So. Ominous Owl.
Is it worse than Grain Sparrow is the question.
I think it's better than Grain Sparrow. I think the ability is better.
Yeah, but I don't think it's better by enough than to change
probably
the numbers.
Not. And it's probably not better than the Thieving Magpie one. So it's probably just a Grain Sparrow.
I think the ability is going to come up more often than the Thieving Magpie one. But generally, AO as a set, you don't really get that much value out of dropping minions on your enemy sites.
No, there are no like violin effects. Cards, yeah. So the best you're hoping for is a charge minion, basically, to reach something that otherwise couldn't reach, pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, it does let you drop squires onto enemy sites. That's something.
Yep. Yep.
But I mean, it does let you drop a squire on this and kill off 2-power minions, but I don't know if that's going to push it up a point.
Are you going to push up the good game to a 4? I don't know. It's pretty...
No, I don't think so.
Not even sure.
I don't think that's playable.
I don't even think... Yeah, none of these are really...
The fact that it's air, it hurts it more than Grain Sparrow.
Yeah, and the... whatever the other one is. The Magpie, yeah. Paraflight, I played this.
Hey, it cycles. And Airborne's a pretty good ability. So
yeah. Well, and importantly, if you don't have many airborne minions in your deck, which can totally happen because there are not many in the set, like it gets a big premium then if you lack ways to deal with airborne stuff.
It's also until your next turn, so it's like acts as a protective thing on something you've just cast as well, makes it very hard to kill.
And it, like we're saying, it draws a spell, obviously, which is
big
deal.
If it didn't draw a spell, it wouldn't even be in consideration, right? But the fact that it does that, it's actually a pretty solid trick. Can potentially let you attack in like a way they weren't expecting, so you potentially get like a free kill or like push them to death's door in a way they weren't expecting.
You just get a free kill, literally, right? Because you draw a card, you just get a free kill on their Robin, potentially.
But again, it is one of those like 23rd, 24th sort of playable slot. Like, you're not upset if it's in your deck, but you're more than happy to cut it for some real juice.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking in terms of... So what was the other cantrip?
It's better than the Silence one. It's better than Grievous Insult, I think.
Yeah, so it's definitely more than 4. I mean, I was inclined to say... Is it like 556?
I think it might be 555.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sherwood Huntress. She gets real good with the sword and shield.
yeah, that was the 2-drop.
That was what I had, right? I had Sherwood Huntress and sword and shield. Yeah,
that was your curve. Which I would have been.
All came flooding back to me as soon as we saw it.
What was that?
As soon as I saw that, it's like, yep, that was what happened.
Yeah.
And I had
that's right.
I had the Red Cap Poweries as well, right? Was that the third one?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's it's the card that's fighting against in the 2-drop slot against the families, right? So it has a threshold, so that's the drawback over the families. But ranged is pretty good, and air in particular. I mean, you've got tactical move, which is a little awkward to want to put in your deck, but there are games when it's really good. The cards this sort of shines with, though, is Warhorse and the Air Warhorse exceptional. Can't remember. Flying Courier? Can't remember what it's called.
Courser.
Find something.
Courser.
Yeah. That's when this guy, or when you're on the play and you can jam it on 2, is when it is pretty good. Because if you're on the play, it forces them to play their guys to the back line, and you can just chill. And sure, you don't get to attack, they don't get to attack, but if their stuff's in the back, they never have the option to attack with it. So it's sort of you get a little bit more advantage through that. And if you're on the draw, you can play it in your back line, and then it makes it really awkward for them to want to attack with anything. So it's certainly pretty good. It's not as good as Shellycoat in that 2-drop slot. It's not as good as Leprechaun. It's pretty good into Leprechaun. What's the other element one? Water.
Scout.
Fire. What's the fire one? Scout. Yeah, it's way better than Scout. Because it has a relevant ability. Like, there's some games where you just drop it on 2 on the play and it really messes with your opponent's start, and that's pretty good. Or those times, like I was saying, where you have the mobility unit and then it's all of a sudden it's great. Or the sword and shield and then it's great. But in general, it's not a card that does heaps by itself, but it synergizes with a lot of other cards that make it do a lot.
Yeah, is it 667?
So I think Would you say 567?
667. Or is it higher than that?
I mean, there's a lot of games where it's just a random 2 that's... Does it? Yeah, maybe it is a 6. Maybe it is 6, 6, 7. Yeah, I don't think I feel strongly enough about trying to push it down 1 to bother. I suppose the one thing is air is a little bit weak, and it's the air 2-drop, so it's like...
Yeah.
And it's one of those 2-drops that isn't great later, so...
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe it does go down a bit, but that's fine. Good enough to keep moving.
Yeah.
Tactical move is effectively in that same bucket of like tricks with the lead astray. What's the silence one again? Got it already.
Grievous, no.
Yeah.
Grievous Insult cantrips, though.
Yep.
So it's in the bucket of tricks that doesn't cantrip, which is a different bucket to the bucket that does cantrip.
I also think it's like...
Because the bucket that cantrips we will conceivably play, but the bucket that doesn't cantrip basically pretty much never makes our deck. Although there's a world where it could. I could see myself playing this, but I never actually have played it.
The thing about a tactical move is it doesn't cantrip, but the trick itself does way more than all the other tricks. So that can make up for it. So like the ceiling on this is way higher than all the other tricks that cantrip, but the floor is like way lower.
Yeah. I guess this gets better if you have flying minions. Like if you had a couple wyverns in your deck, it obviously gets better. Like if you have stuff where, because obviously 2 steps on the diagonal is you basically reach any point of the board at that point, and
realistically airborne doesn't even matter when it's that many steps with everything on your board. So it's really good for killing someone on death's door.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's generally the floor is probably equal to the average game for this card as well, because it doesn't cantrip. So I think like when it's good, it's like really good, but most of the time it's just like led astray sort of levels.
Yeah, I mean the bad game for this is
led astray.
Is literal. Well, what does led astray do? How low did we rate that? Because that should be really low.
Down. 1.
1, yeah, that feels right. So it's like basically it's something like 1, 2, way higher than 3. Is it like 1 through 8 or something? No, because we're not saying literally. We're saying the 25th best
it's probably
game.
like 6, maybe 5 or 6. I think is the really good game for it.
Yeah, but we're saying the 25th.
And it probably
best
comes
game,
up enough in that 25% that like when it's good, it is that good. Oh, maybe that's not true. I don't know. It always gets cut as like one of the last cards.
I mean, the reality is right. Like even if you use it to kill something, it still costs you a card. So you have to kill at least 2 things without losing anything,
which is certainly possible.
Yeah, to get any kind of card advantage, right? But there's all sorts of stuff in this set that facilitates you being able to, like the water
Powerflight
scout or powerflight or whatever. There's all sorts of stuff that facilitates that. So if that's what you're getting, whatever, fine. And that probably is about where you sit, right? In the 25th. The difference is with this card is when you're saying there's 5 games in 100 or whatever it is, 3 games in 100 or whatever it may be, where it would just win you the game all by itself. There's this tiny percentage of games where this just wins you the game. And that obviously carries some kind of premium value that we're not capturing in this system, basically, right?
Yeah, so it probably is like a 1, 2, 3 on this rankings, but it's got like a caveat of 8 in like 3 games out of 100 sort of thing.
I mean, I do feel for sure that that 25th best game out of 100 is probably likely to be better than Led Astray. It's more flexible, it's more versatile. Right?
Maybe.
Because Led Astray is a single location, right?
Yeah, but it's all the enemy units at a single location.
Yeah, at one location, which, could just be 1.
Yeah, but it could also just be their avatar, which can matter quite a lot.
Can do, but probably being able to move everything you have to is going to be equally as good as that.
Yeah, potentially.
Probably.
Yeah, probably.
This is more versatile, for sure.
Yeah.
This is more versatile, which means that you're likely to be able to get more value out of it, right? On that 25th best game out of 100, basically.
Yeah, I think it's more just the synergies that Led Astray has might... Maybe that's not even true either, because it's mostly like... I'm just thinking like Trollbridge and things
like that. Is it 1, 2, 4 then? Led Astray 1, 2, 3. This 1, 2, 4.
Probably slightly better than one. I think that's fair.
I definitely would, like you're saying, sure, if you had like 2 troll bridges or whatever, like, I would be okay, a little bit more okay with it. But this just feels like you don't need really. Like,
I think tactical move ends up in your deck more than Led Astray.
Yeah, well,
anyway.
You don't necessarily need anything else, right? Like, you only had 23 cards you could play, and that's just the 24th one because all the rest are just really bad. Like, you're not totally unhappy with that.
Yeah,
to have this type of trick up your sleeve, right? Like, it's just like I'm saying. There's just going to be that game that it just wins all by itself occasionally, and that counts for something, pretty much, right?
But the scenario of it being like good or that good is like so low that, and the bad games are so low that it's like you prefer it to not be in your deck. But if it is, potentially you get that scenario come up, and you're like, yeah.
Yeah, well, exactly, and that's why I think it's just. They're the types of things you hear about a lot, right? When people are... Yeah. We'll get to that after, but it's later on with the decks and stuff and talk about it a bit more, but it's... I doubt that we'll end up in anything we do, pretty much, just because of this really low floor. And that's just how we build decks, typically, right? Like, we build decks where effectively you don't lose through... But you lose through bad luck as little as possible, and you try and that normally means if you're going to win, you have to win through skill, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's how we just prefer to play. So we just prefer to play to not lose to bad luck and to win to skill, right? That's just how we conceptualize, like how we just prefer to play, right? You're putting as much as your own destiny into your own hands as possible, right? To just not lose to bad luck as much as possible. But the downside to that is you don't get that many free wins, right? Because you're normally playing cards with high bad game values, and those typically have lower good game values, typically, right? So, Weightless Squire.
So it's definitely not the worst one because Thankless Squire exists, but it's definitely a tier down from Reckless and what's the water one called?
No.
We'll just call him Water.
Water Scout.
Yeah, but it's still just a lump.
Let's
right?
have a look. Shameless Squire. Shameless. Right.
Yeah. So it's definitely a tier down from those two, but it's definitely a tier up from Thankless.
Alright, so Thankless is
and it is still just a lance trick, so definitely they are valuable, right?
Yeah.
And you're left over with a 1-power airborne unit. And as you were saying before, airborne is not easy to get. So you can potentially, be able to pick off like a Robin or, like things like that, right? Like, so it's not like the 1-power airborne body is useless. It's better, technically it's probably better than the other bodies, but the trick is only lance, whereas the trick on the other one is like much more, right? Because it gives you the ability to get rid of other lances and
tap something so they can't double block something they thought they were going to double block, and then the fire one has the charge to immediately kill something or carry the lance to something on their side of the board. So the upside, the good game for this is going to be significantly less, but probably the bad game and the average game is going to be somewhat similar. Bad game is probably similar, maybe even a bit better with this one, possibly.
So I don't think... So the bad game for this one is slightly better than the water, but not better than the fire.
Yeah, and they think
the bad game for the fire sort of has like a remove a 2-power minion, right? So
yeah, and we set the other two to be the same. So
yeah. So I think...
Is it just 4-5-5?
Yeah, I think that's fair.
All right, sites, artifacts. Is there there's one ordinary artifact, right? Just a rock. 0.
Not viable.
0, 0, 1.
I mean, you could get a ring. but that's not 25% again.
Even Ring's not necessarily that broken in Limited, right? Because they typically can only play one spell a turn. Like, it's okay, right? But
it's you obliterated me with it once.
Just wrong.
I remember my whole hand being 1 or 2 power, and you went Ring, and I went, all right, that's game.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. Okay, so
I think the good game's still 0.
I don't know,
because it should never be in your deck.
I guess so. I mean, okay, so the way to conceptualize this is that you're snagging a Lance token with it, pretty much, right? Like, that's what you're...
Yeah.
That's its good game. The 25th best game out of 100 is you got a Lance token.
Yeah. So you won for point to carded yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. This card should never be in your deck. There's not enough. I mean, if you know everybody in your draft pod drafted a Sword and Shield, I would play it.
Yeah.
That's not 25% against.
Okay, so what artifacts can you actually carry that are... Yeah, okay, so quite a lot that are unique. What is there that's exceptional?
That's not unique. That's all of them, right? That was all.
Yeah, so unique. Sword and Shield, that's it from exceptional that you would care about. From Elite, that's going to happen straight away.
Any smart player plays Horn and drops it.
In Limited?
I mean, maybe not. I mean, yeah. I suppose a smart player would not be expecting you to be playing just a rock.
Yeah.
So maybe you keep holding it.
I mean, there's some stuff here, sure, right? Like this, like most of this, if somebody had it, like this, there's stuff.
Yeah, if you
right?
could sideboard before the game and you knew you had to deal with something, sure. But
Ring, okay, so there's stuff, but ultimately, yeah, you're definitely not playing it. I'm just questioning. Is it a 1 potentially? I don't know if it's worth even talking about.
I don't even think it's a 1. I think it's a 0.
I mean, it's. I know it's the card that I'm past the most as the last card in the pack when we draft.
It's either that or Leyline Henge.
Oh, yeah, maybe. Yep, okay, that's close between those two. You're right, yeah. So we'll wrap this episode up here. Please leave a comment if you've got a question or you'd like to request for us to talk about something specific in a future episode. That'd be appreciated. In the next episode, we'll be looking at the Ordinary Sight cards from Arthurian Legends, and that should be released in a few days' time. So until then, keep safe, keep well, and keep enjoying your sorcery. Cheers.